Let's post our little Linky Loos.
Yes.
Sorry, was that a weird sound to make?
No, you're fine.
We out here sounding. Now you're struck with the war-torn scar of knowing what I mean. Like, that's just a silly little thing Lee says before or after meme.
Yeah.
We out here streaming. Bloop. I'm a little streamer, short and stout. Here is my wallet, and here is my pout. I can't find it. Okay. Self promotions. I'm promoting myself.
Yes.
I had to let him know. I'm gonna post. I'm going to tell our little fellow. We're going to tell TTRPG. Well, I think we posted everywhere now, haven't we, Parker?
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, well then. It's time for a little Parker and Lee extraordinaire as we read through WARRUNE, a game about war and runes, presumably. We're not too sure. But yeah, here we are, and it is back on the carousel for us. Imagine, if you will, that carnival music is playing, and we're going up and down on little plastic horses. And we're sipping out of comical straws. It's WARRUNE time. Mm-hmm. Immediately we're confronted with this, I would say black metal is my immediate response. Is that an AK? Is that the barrels of a gun? A chainsaw? So, I was actually assuming that this was going to be a more medieval John with WARRUNE, but I feel like I'm seeing gun barrels in the art now that I really look at it. And this is presumably spliced together historical paintings over this expression of, you know, not exactly happy.
I wouldn't say so. No, he looks very English.
And look at the text here. WARRUNE looks like it's a. It's not. This is, you think it's a font? It's got to be lettered, right, with the reverse R.
I couldn't tell you, but I think it would be.
Yeah, we have a different line widths here on the other side of the R. Yeah, it's looking svelte. It's looking sexy. You described it earlier, right?
Yeah, I was like, with the expression of the person, I was like, scary stories to tell in the dark meets like death metal album cover.
No, for real. I think we begin as we mean to go on there. Well, let's find out. We have the talk. Immediately we are confronted with this like old school vaultish background, the dead, the scales of fate with Nemanus. I'm not versed enough to know what that means, but we have this very like, and like it looks like divine art, you know what I mean, of that sort of Basilica era.
Absolutely.
And we've got lots of fun going on here. This like little window, like it's an alcove, and this dark abyss, and this scratched effect to the edge. WARRUNE is a tabletop strategy game by Victor A. Gonzalez, originally published by Cursed Knights in 2020, redesigned and remastered in 2023. So this is the remaster. WARRUNE takes inspiration from Arkham Horror, the card game. That's interesting. I know Arkham Horror. I don't know Arkham Horror, the card game. By French and known. Lost Roads by Ari Ramsey, and Strike by Jim Garva. The Olivia Hill rules adapted from Olivia Hill and Machine Age Productions, licensed under CC BY-SA 4.0. Special thanks to Margaret Catterdev for organizing the 2020 turn-based tactics jam that spawned WARRUNE.
Strat 48 Typeface by Armachi. Is the typeface the one on the cover, do you think?
Well, let's figure that out. Let's do a little
Yeah.
font investigating. Welcome to the font do.
Oh no, that's the one they used for the headers. That's a really nice. That's really nice.
It's that medieval digital
Yeah.
bleeding edge.
Absolutely. I adore it. I was looking at it while you were reading through, and
So let's analyze here from what we already know from like one page of credits, right? This game was made in a game jam. I mean, it was probably made in a bit of a hurry, and it's been remastered now 3 years later. It was made during pandemic. WARRUNE. Huh? And welcome to the WARRUNE. We're talking about WARRUNE. Oh fuck! Did I misspell it when we went live, or is Lurb just Lurb? I need to know if that joke was serious or not. So we have the credits. Fascist fuck off. WARRUNE mixtape. Hell's total fucking war. So like this is nice, right? It's a nice table of contents, but we might have like something that made it a little easier to delineate because to Lee, this is running together. I'm guessing this is in tightening visually of fundamentally the same mechanics with perhaps some improvements tuned up. So I can see, and everything else looks so beautiful. I can understand why the table of contents maybe gets left out there, but it's nice. It's good. It does its job, and we can see already we have whatever Epoch 1 is, and we can see that we have 4 missions. So that's quite a bit to give you. It looks like a mission is about 2-3 pages. 42, 43, 44, 45. Actually, no, it's definitely 2 pages. So it looks like the game, is 30 pages of rules, followed by examples, references, upgrades probably getting keyword. Like a lot of this looks like it's probably reference and stuff to run with in terms of these final 10 pages. So a shorter game in the grand scheme, 21 spreads, and we provide a lot of content here within the book itself, which is nice. A lot of people are only ever going to have the one book. Putting out additional PDFs isn't going to change that. So it's nice that we have that packaged here. Some of these are pretty obvious what they are. Like there's a mixtape, Fascist Fuck Off. We talk about things like the Slayer phase and actions. I can guess what round sequence Slayer phase and actions are about, roughly. I don't know what Master Revelation 666 are about. But point is, we're going to get there. I find intriguing the order presented by the table of contents. But let's dive in, shall we? Boop. Fascist Fuck Off. Author's note. WARRUNE uses iconography of death and black metal music. Norse Vikings. The images of war as purely stylistic motifs. Extreme metal continues to have a Nazi problem, a racist problem, a misogynist problem, a rapist problem, and a reactionary politics problem. The same continues to be true of tabletop war games and role-playing games. I won't be reclaiming symbols of the hateful message. You won't find any sunwheels here, and I'm done my best not to include reference to reactionary bands and musicians. It is at this point that I invoke the Olivia Hill rule and first rule of the game. You may not play, print, or share this game if you're fast, racist, sexist, homophobe, transphobe, bigot, or reactionary. Content warning: the game contains references to violence, blood, gore, vomit, blasphemy, and harsh language. Please don't take this game too seriously. Take care of yourselves and promote a safe gaming experience for those and everyone at your table. Alright, so, page 1. Page 2. WARRUNE Mixtape, Side A, Serpentine Path, Arrows. Author and Punisher, Terrorbird. Thorns, Stellar Master Elite. Pharmacon, Body Betrays Itself. Desolate Shrine, The Smell of Blood and Iron. Blood aus Nord, Epitome 2. Weak Dude, Prowl, Side B, Defense Wound, Trench Wraith, Antichrist Siege Machine, self-titled Antichrist Siege Machine. Vomitory, They Will Burn, A Feather and Bone, Entropic Self-Immolation. Outer Heaven, Putrid Dwelling. Watchmaker, Demonically Entrenched. Alcardil, Horse Saw. Craft, I Want to Commit Murder. Putricine, The One Reborn. Iskra, Predator Drone Mark 1. So we can tell, even if these were fake names and bands, we can sort of get the vibe, right? It draws upon, black metal, dark metal, and that sort of vibe. And I think that, we would listen to some of these if we weren't going to get copyright struck, but Your life ended on the battlefield. Skull split open with an axe, gas in your trench, asphyxiation into a pile of corpses, melted by plasma, blood eagle, took an arrow to the throat. I don't know if the blood eagling would occur on a battlefield. Made into unrecognizable gibbs by an artillery strike, bludgeoned by an enemy's helmet, guts pulled out, blood boiled in the vacuum space, ritual sacrifice, irradiated by nuclear fallout. Well, that's very scary now, isn't it?
Oh my god.
This was only your first of countless deaths. Force-fed napalm, flayed with scythes by skinless zealots, smelled with a change, diced by laser grid, mingled into the treads of a tank adorned with severed heads. So this gets very vivid, right?
Yeah.
You're very vivid, beaten with your severed arm. So,
Oh my god.
a million damned soldiers spill out from a mix of gore, filling the burning air with their screams, the hideous songs of war. The dead swarm over ageless monoliths and molten remains, doomed and hellborn alike oppose you. Through the infinite deaths and resurrection, you and your comrades are forged into slayers. The gates of hell are sealed by runes of infernal power, but hell cannot contain your wrath. Capture the runes to breach this dimension of war without end. Hell is total fucking war. WARRUNE is a cooperative tabletop game with brutal tactical combat for 1 or 2 players. Oh!
Oh, that's cool.
That's interesting. I was expecting this to be like more of a party-based RPG. What we have is a tactical combat game for 1 to 2 players. You play as slayers, dead warriors damned to battle in hell against demons and undead legions hailing from ancient eons and dark futures. A summary of WARRUNE, a pen and paper strategy game for 1 or 2 players. Gameplay that reproduces the brutality and frantic action of games like Doom Eternal and Gears of War. Roll D66. You roll more than 6s and 1s, you succeed. If you roll more 6s than 1s, you succeed. I see. Epic battles with no map, grid, or measuring tape required. Ooh. So, tactics without the map and the grid. I think that's an interesting medley we've got going on here. Wield and upgrade an arsenal of weapons, equipment, and incantations to immolate and tear foes apart. This reminds me in some ways of Hellpiercers, which is about the space communists who defeat God and then find out about hell and then go there, which was kickstarted recently by Sandy Pug Games. Pretty cool. Nem over there, she's been a great help with Kickstarter stuff, so shout out Sandy Pug and their local DC heads. What you need: this rulebook, 4 6-sided dice, a standard deck of playing cards, of Grimdark miniatures or tokens for enemies and slayers. They were specifying Grimdark. Pencils. Also note, there's a bit of sleight of hand here, right? If you are already a wargamer, you probably have miniatures, but they are probably eclectic or for a certain era. And because we have implicit here in these ends of life, like all sorts of, eras, right? Curbstick of an Aztec Jaguar Warrior, artillery, gas, axes, plasma. You can probably use any sort of mini that you already have.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Although interesting, there's no map or grid, but we were using miniatures. For enemies and stuff. Maybe you just put tokens next to them or something. Pencils. Oh?
What was that?
I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, no, sorry.
Printed Slayer sheets, enemy sheets, and zone cards. See separate PDFs. I did see that there were some of those optional tokens for status effects and resources. Create your Slayer. And I'm finding this a pretty easy read. They've given us like a decent sized font. Most crucially, they haven't double columned. They've single columned. And that's given a lot of space.
Yeah.
And they're not being conservative with the double space. So we've got a lot of room. And they arranged this text artisanally.
Very much so.
What do you call someone who's excited to have eggs today until he had balsamic vinegar put on it?
What?
Balsamic.
Oh my god.
So, time to create a Slayer. On a blank sheet, concept name nom de guerre. Customize your miniature tokens as you see fit. Choose a name of nom de guerre that sounds death metal as fuck. Below examples of nom de guerres you can choose, write your own on your player's sheet. Draped in white phosphorus, Rico process and artificially incubated for nuclear plant side. The murmuring resonance of doom. The saint of coagulation. So with nom de guerre, we don't mean like, axe, or we mean like, give yourself a black metal album cover. The keys to the gulag, the supreme necrot. Intact with diabolical cyber psyche. Each Slayer has the following information: 12 max blood, 6 max armor, 1 mass and max ammo, 4 shells, 6 bullets, and 2 heavy ammo. Write these values on your player's sheet. These values can be improved later by spending XP on upgrades. So we have a unified starting position all characters begin at, meaning that we do not have to customize in these senses our characters yet, our blood, our armor, our mass, yada yada. I see we have the Quake style lightning gun. Yeah, we're going to get to that, but this is explicitly inspired by games like Doom Eternal and that sort of like the latter day follow-ups to the boomer shooter.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Grimdark.
Okay, so if you're familiar with Warhammer 40k?
Yes.
In one of the first, I believe the first one, I might still been called Road Trader. It's in the grim darkness of the year 40,000. There is only war at the end of a paragraph, all explaining how every faction wants to fucking kill each other, and also humanity has fallen into a basically hopeless cycle of repressive imperial rule, but the emperor is like basically a corpse on a throne powering a space lighthouse.
Okay.
And the only thing that's going to happen is people are going to get fucking killed. So that's where the phrase, that's where like the grimdark gets shortened into one thing and used to refer to like bleak scenarios, like the world you'd imagine looking at a black metal cover, right? Like things are pretty fucked and everyone is dying, and this game I think is set in literally hell based on what I've seen.
Yeah, it seems like it.
So yeah, it seems like this is sort of the setup, right? It's in a very bleak environment and it's about killing, and in a sense there's a broader conversation to be had about tabletop role-playing games incentivizing violence and the ways in which you can alter that and play with that if that's what you want to do. And in this, the idea is, I presume, everyone is already dead and you're just kind of going at it, but you want to be free. Oh, look. Who carries the flayed skins of every fucking turf and chaser? We have a nice nom de guerre there.
That's a good one.
Imagine having to turn to someone and say that every time you wanted someone's character to do something. That's why there's only 2 players. You can't remember that many of these. Playing solo. In solo games, you control 1 Slayer. That Slayer has all weapons from Arsenal 1 and 2. Order gain 4th incantation, step 4.
So you can play solo.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, it's 1 to 2. So choose an arsenal of weapons from the list below and write your own choice on the Slayer sheet. Each Slayer must have different arsenals from each other. Okay, so if I have the shotgun, you can't take it, I guess. So the shotgun costs 1 shell, fires 3 damage, deal +2 damage if the slate is engaged with the target. Slayers. Okay. So presumably that's like we're doing melee without a grid, basically. So like if they're engaged, what we mean is they're in kissing distance. When 2 models like each other very much in the grim darkness of hell in the future. The chain gun costs 2 bullets. Attached to this weapon, have advantage against enemies with a mass greater than the Slayer's. Fire. So this is for taking down big enemies. Fires 5 damage, which is the shotgun's damage, basically. But if you're firing the chain gun, you can fire 3 times at 6 bullets before you're out. You can fire the shotgun 4 times. So as long as you're guaranteeing you're always doing it up close, you're doing, yeah, all right. Alt fire, deal 1 damage up to 3 enemies in the zone. Alt fire, the target gets a -1 mass this round. Assume it refers to size. Rocket launcher costs 2 heavy ammo, so you'd be dry after 1 shot. 10 damage. If target is killed with this attack, burn each enemy in the zone. Deals 4 damage to each enemy in the zone as the alt fire. So we've got some pretty big thematic things that are about. We don't know what the damage is really like yet, what people's health is like. We know we have 12 max blood, which is presumably your health. Arsenal to the sawed-off shotgun. And we're supposed to choose an arsenal of weapons from each of this below and write your choices. Choose an arsenal of weapons from this below and write your choices on your Slayer sheet. Each Slayer must have different arsenal from another. Slayers all the weapons from arsenals. Oh! I was like, how many do we pick? I realize now we just need to have different. What's the difference between Arsenal 1 and 2? Choose an arsenal of weapons. Oh, I'm so silly. You're supposed to choose Arsenal 1 or Arsenal 2. The sawn-off, the revolver, and the lightning gun, the chain gun, the shotgun, the rocket launcher are mutually exclusive unless you're playing solo, in which case you have all of them. So this is player 1 guns, player 2 guns, and they are distinctly built to complement one. The sawed-off is 5 damage, 2 if engaged. You burn the target as the alt fire, but it costs 2. So the sawn-off is like hitting harder, but you're only getting 2 shots to begin with. The revolver, you're spreading it longer in terms of bullets. 6 shots revolver. Cute. Lightning gun only costs 1 heavy ammo, so you can shoot it twice. Okay. So we're alternating ammo costs, damage amounts, how effective you are, yada yada. I see. We got something going on here. Note, if you will, the full spectrum art. This person's like, is this like clay work? This is, I'm not sure if it's like a nuclear explosion or just like something going off underwater. This dude's got a gun and he's screaming. This is like a catacombs layered in. This is historical art of like a knight. You know, a lot of work went into it. Is that Lee? It's Lee's boy from this angle. He looks like Mad Mardigan. It is. It's his eye. I'm trying to. Oh my gosh! Nice. No, yeah, we are. We out here with Parker.
Hi.
And we're doing a little bit of a read through of an indie tabletop role playing game. It's called WARRUNE, and I am so silly. I should really have. I should have the link to this person's itch in the chat. But yeah, hello Forlath, a pleasure to see you. Victor A. Gonzalez has been so kind as to give me a sneak peek. Here's the itch page. And yeah, it's just we're having a lovely little time. Oh, and manually unpinned or under stream. And yeah, this is a game about, it's for 1 to 2 players, a tactical war game about being in hell. And much like a Doom Eternal style situation, you have this mix of like Doom Quake-ass guns, and you just blow through and burn the enemy. Your Slayer starts with the following incantation. Roll a 6-sided dice to gain 2 or more incantations. We can barely see him, but that's Lee. Oh, part of our games, thank you. I presume we're in Anti-Cosmic Overload. Oh, so these are your spells, basically. Roll a 6-sided die twice to gain 2 more incantations in the list below. With the following incantation. Roll a 6-sided dice twice to gain more. Okay, so you always have Anti-Cosmic Overload, which perhaps is depicted here. The Slayer of your choice gains advantage on their next roll this round, which could mean you or your buddy, if you have one. 6 chalices of vomit and blood. The Slayer zone has Slayers have +1 mass. This effect is lost if a Slayer casts 6 chalices of vomit and blood again. I think that mass is going to help blow through enemies, but you want to have less mass than your enemy if you're using the shot, if you're using the chain gun. So it sounds like there's some mass management. Enunciation of the Viscera, and you're supposed to get 2 of these randomly, but you always have Anti-Cosmic. Anti-Cosmic is just spend whatever the rage resource is, which I don't think that we saw that listed here. Maybe there's not a maximum. Oblivion Eyes. Kill 1 non-lord enemy of the Slayer zone. Amazing. Place a supply at the Slayer zone. Place 2 supply instead if it was killed this round. So it looks like we have a network of zones for how this game is being handled to create the battlefields. Again, we actually haven't been told that yet. We're just being told about our options. Some players will be like, but I don't know what that is, so how can I make that decision? Which is valid, and we respect them, but unfortunately the chicken-egg problem is eternal. Doom Eternal. In tabletop role-playing games, and WARRUNE, as a shorter game, particularly one born of a jam, is really just kind of slotting you in sequentially. There's something to be said for it, because you're not flipping back to check the rules reference unless you are that sort of person. If you're the sort of person who's like, here but for God go I, then you're like, okay, I need to make my character now, which is what a lot of people are going to flip to immediately anyway. And they just make their character, and they're like, okay, and you're not even making a choice here, so you don't need to know about rage or anything. You have Anti-Cosmic Overload, you get D6 randoms, right? So, Parker, would you be so kind as to hand me the dice box that's over there?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Many thanks. So, if Parker and I were playing this game, right, and I rolled twice, I'd have Primeval Cyclical Catastrophism. Kill all exhausted non-lord enemies in the Slayer zone. I don't even know that exhaustion was a thing. I don't know about lord enemies until I see this. Point is, I have Primeval Cyclical Catastrophism.
Okay.
I'll roll a 6-sided dice twice to gain 2 more incantations in the list below and write them on your Slayer sheet. I don't think they said what happens if you roll the same thing twice. I'm going to guess you just re-roll. I also have when paradigms supplant gods. The Slayer zone has non-load enemies have -1 mass. That is lots of player cast when paradigms supplant gods again. So you can't go around splurring every zone with your incantation, and it seems like lords will be immune to most of this. I'm presuming they are boss monsters, and they don't want you to be able to oblivionize them. Your players start with the following. Starts with the following equipment: Forbidden Chalice of Blood. Gain 1 mass this round. It'd be really funny if that's the only equipment you start with. It is. All right. Well, we have a character now, and you know, maybe you have an Enunciation of the Viscera, and I have when paradigms plant gods, and I can make everyone skinny maxing, and you can give us supply, and we don't know what any of that means yet, but here we go. Mission setup. We have characters. We're now setting up a mission. We'll presumably learn how to play soon. Choose a mission to play. If this is your first time learning to play, set up mission 1 on page 39 using the instructions below. Oh. So this game, interestingly, straddles that board game, tabletop game area where there's like a pre-made mission not by anyone who's playing the game. Interesting. So that's why they include so many missions in the book. Mission setup. Choose a mission to play. If this is your first time learning to play, set up mission 1 on page 39. Use the instructions below. 2. Look at the mission's right-hand page to see a list of enemy types you will face. Gather the number of miniatures of tokens for each enemy type equal to the max listed by the name. Gather the mission's enemy sheet. Use this sheet to write enemy blood amounts, mark status effects on enemies, and to keep track of doom during the mission. Doom. It's always a fun time deciding what order to put each section in. Yeah, we oscillated on equipment and rules. And in Changed Stars as well, you'll get gear that will tell you shit that you don't know yet, because the Chapter 3 is how you play the game and Chapter 2 is the gear. But we knew people were going to be like, I just made my character, I know what my gear is, give me the... And like, starting with Karagen, I'm not going to say you have to do it because I'm against such axioms, but in my experience with my friends, a new player will always hound the making a character section first. Yeah. So it frequently makes sense to just put it first because we know they're going to go for it anyway. Okay. There are other ideologies, I suppose you could say, and we do define some stuff up front in the intro because there's a certain ideology which states you should never use a word you haven't already defined. But if you were going to really do that with the equipment section, you basically need to put pretty much all the rules before the equipment section, unless the equipment section just didn't happen to reference certain rules, which is possible in certain games.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm the type of person that will cover to cover a rule book before I even think about playing.
And this is not like, you know, necessarily the world's longest, right? Like we're probably gonna tap the bottom of this barrel before the end of the stream. Okay. So this is a very read front to backable game. Yeah, and I like that about it. I really do. Yeah, there's much to be said for a game that you can sit down, like read through, and be like, yeah, okay, I can now play this with my friends, or well, friend singular in this case,
or just yourself.
Yeah, it's
which is cool.
And really a little frayed edge. Yeah, there's much to be said for solo play. I'm always saying the phrase, "There's much to be said." Solo play is a growing sector of the tabletop realm, frequently as a bolt-on to an additional game. Interesting that this game has it as a primary, particularly given it was a jam game, and it's really more work. Because if you can just give a game runner suggestions, you have to write a lot less. If you have to pre-write missions, it's quite a bit. It's zesty. Use this sheet to write the enemy blood amounts, much as we do. Gather the playing cards. Oh, the playing cards. How lovely. With matching suites and number letters listed in the zone. Oh my goodness. Cards.
We're using cards.
That was probably listed in the things we needed, and I just zoomed over it. Follow the arena setup instructions to play zone cards in your table. Arrange as they appear in the arena zone layout. Zone cards are always placed face down. For those of you who don't know, a combat arena is just sort of like a locked area where you shoot things, and it's sort of semicircular. That's how the newest Doom games have tended to do their levels. And that's nice. You know, I think some people describe it as like a skate park with gore. And they're simulating that by saying, like, yeah, if you're in that sort of an arena, you don't really need like necessarily a map if we assume that you're having a very dynamic fight that we're just not bothering to depict with minis in terms of like moving around every square. So here's an example, right? You have 1, and it has a little rune on it, and I don't know why, but we'll find out. A 2, a 3, a 4, and you can go between 1 and 3 and 4. 4 can go back to 1. 1 can go to 3, and 3 can go to 2. So even though this is like this little cross, I'm assuming you can't take the cross intersection other places. I'm assuming it has to. Yeah, they fooled us. This is technically speaking like a linear progression, except you can go to the dead end 4 right away. You can proceed to the level. The summit of the corpse deity. The Slayer starts the round here. Gain extra action. Okay, so yeah, I can see how this would have board game vibes because they mentioned Arkham Horror, the card game, and that's a card gamification of a board game, which my game Geet Unbidden, I don't know if you're still here for Lath, is in many ways an adaptation of the horror games Arkham and Eldritch, in terms of like an RPGification of it. So it's interesting that this is almost in a similar design vein to the Geet Unbidden, but obviously in like to such a remove as to make it more a momentary like, my, how intriguing. Unless so oh yeah, these games are going to be similar. So I'm going to pull this shit up and we're going to keep going. So gather your Slayer sheets. So you get your shit together, choose the difficulty of the mission. Beginning you get 2 reprieves, normally get 1 per reprieve, challenging you get 0 reprieves, nightmare. Don't skip rolling to spawn enemies when a torment resolves. 8. Read the mission introduction. Follow any additional steps listed in the mission. Keep the mission open in front of the players as you will continue to reference during play. Place your Slayer miniature tokens at the starting zone. You're now ready to rip and tear. Yay! Rip and tear. So, it's arenas and zones time. Can I zoom in without fucking up? Yes, I can, kind of. Okay. In this example, Zone 1 connects to Zones 3 and 4, but is not connected to Zone 2. Indeed. Slayer find rare locations in hell called zones. Look at the mission's arena and connect zones. There are straight lines between them. Slayers move the mission or resurrect at their starting zone. I see. So if you die, you come back here. That's what that means.
Oh, okay.
Slayers move from their zones into connecting zones. Slayers cannot move into locked zones. Lock. Unless their zones are unlocked. Oh, I see. Now, I hate to be that guy. And I was already confused by one symbol, so maybe it was the right choice. But there is a certain school of thought which would dictate if there are 2 logos that can be on a map with examples, you would concoct either this example or another example which would display what that looks like. Where you try and put all of these major cases in so you can show. I don't think the lock concept is really so complicated that's necessary.
No, I don't think so.
But as a note, that might be how one did it. And we can see zones are pretty simple. The summit of the corpse deity, 1 mass, 2 runes, 3 supply, 1 fuel, 2 barrels. I'm not sure what mass being here means. It was a really small platform. Does this limit how many people can be here? Yada yada. But if the Slayer starts the round, here gain extra action. When the Slayer moves into a zone for the first time or begins the mission, that zone becomes revealed and the card is turned face up. Place the card with the zone that corresponds to its suites and number letter face up. Each zone has a series of values, including the zone's mass, number of runes, and resources like supply, fuel, explosive barrels. Where the zone is turned face up, place a number of runes, supply, fuel, barrels on that zone. This is listed in the zone's information. You can use tokens or no card to keep track of resources in each zone. Zones have special rules that apply to Slayers and enemies alike. There are some zones of zone actions that a Slayer may take there. Oh my gosh. Revelation 666, how to roll. To make a roll, roll 3 6-sided dice. Note that Revelation 666 that we saw earlier, right? It was very thematic, but did not at a glance show us the how to roll section.
Yeah.
You could name it Revelation 666-how to roll, but you would kind of scuff the aesthetic. So ultimately, you have to kind of make a choice, right? As to which way you're going to go. Advantages. So you can see advantage, you roll an extra dice, and you drop the lowest disadvantage, you drop the highest. I think that's neat. So it's a 3d6 system, and D666 is a thematic way of showing that. Dice results, critical hit, you roll 2 or more 6s and no 1s. Strong, you roll more 6s than 1s. Weak, you roll 0, the same number of 6s and 1s. So generally speaking, you don't need to succeed for a weak hit, you just need to do it. It's kind of like a grazing hit, which I like. I like not denying you constantly. And this creates a nice curve because you have to get more 1s than 6s for the miss to happen, which is just unlikely. less likely than the weak hit. Critical miss, you roll 2 or more 1s and no 6s. Oof. Whenever you roll critical hit, your Slayer gains an extra action. Whenever you roll critical miss, you gain 1 rage. So even if you fuck up, you know, you're getting extra rage. On critical miss, enemies go berserk. Each ready non-colossal enemy moves 1 zone towards the nearest Slayer. Enemies in a zone with at least 1 Slayer do not move. If no enemies can move, roll to spawn enemies on that Slayer's zone.
The 3d6 is, like you said, really thematic, but it's also really memorable. I think.
Yeah.
Like, I really, really like it.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to forget the resolution mechanic of the game. Said, "Hell, it's 666," and you know, because it's nothing seems to change how many dice you roll overall. It seems like, oh, someone's doing something. Okay, roll 3d6. Unless you know advantage, disadvantage. Okay, add 1 dice. Very straightforward, memorable, and it sounds like you're going to be doing a lot of shooting. So you want it to be. You wouldn't want to complicate it much more than this.
Yeah.
Particularly if it's like 1 to 2 people just rolling through slaying. It's always a fun time deciding what order to put each section in. It is. Oh, you want to say that? Slayers, enemies, and mass. Slayers, enemies, and zones are called mass to measure their power against one another. Oh. Their power. I was thinking it was size. Mass modifies the difficulty of a roll made by or against a Slayer. Whenever a Slayer rolls against an enemy or a zone, I see. So zones have mass not to dictate how large they are, but to dictate their power against the player.
Okay.
Compare the Slayer's mass to their target's mass. Modify the roll depending on how much the Slayer's mass is greater or less than the target's roll. Wait. Huh? When an enemy rolls against a Slayer, modify the roll depending on how much the enemy's mass is greater or less than the Slayer's mass. For example, say with 1 mass rolls against an enemy with 2 mass, the Slayer's mass would be 1 less than the enemy. If an enemy with 2 mass rolls against a Slayer with 1 mass, the enemy's mass would be 1 greater than the Slayer. Modify D66 according to the modifiers below. Mass modifiers. Equal, no modifier. 1 or greater, 1 to 5 counts as a 6. Okay, so they're adjusting the hit number. Okay.
Okay.
1 less. They're counting it. 2 rolls as a 1. Oh, and they're adjusting the ceiling and the floor. They're raising, for the person at disadvantage, you're raising, yeah, 2 or 3 counts. Okay. Nice. Nice. I see. I see. Making the weak hits less likely. And the fuck-ups more. Nice. Okay. I was like, are they going to add dice? But no, I see now that what they mean. That's cool. Round sequence. Fight. A mission in WARRUNE is played over a series of rounds, each divided into 3 phases. The Slayer phase. Slayers wage war and capture runes to achieve their objective. The enemy phase. Enemies assault the Slayers. The Hell phase. Doom escalates, enemies are spawned. When all 3 phases are complete, the round is over and a new round begins. The Slayers are victorious if they complete all of their objectives, or if their ass has demolished the seat and it needs to be reassembled briefly. That's what we call the booty phase. One moment. All right. The Slayers are victorious if they complete all their objectives. They are defeated if Doom reaches its max. Otherwise, the players may agree to stop playing and resign from the mission at any time. Each outcome with an optional enhanced roll and challenge for the next mission. Okay, so they're fighting against Doom. They can respawn, but if the Doom tops out, they're fucked. The Slayer phase. During the Slayer phase, the Slayer kills enemies and captures runes to advance their objective. Now my phone going crazy all of a sudden. During the Slayer phase, the Slayers kill enemies and capture runes to advance their objectives. At the beginning of the Slayer phase, the players decide which Slayer will take the first turn. Each Slayer can take up to 3 actions on their turn. Slayers do not have to take all their actions at once. Players may pass the turn to any Slayer that has actions remaining or is able to take a free action. The Slayer phase ends. So you have a lot of actions. So you have 3 actions, plus if you get a crit, you'll get an extra. There's some other ways to get extra actions. The Slayer phase ends when the players run out of actions or decide not to take any more actions or free actions. Any unused actions are lost and do not carry over to the next round. Play then proceeds to the enemy phase. Slayers provide to take any following actions as many times as they want, provided they have actions to take. Attack an enemy in the Slayer zone. Blow up an explosive barrel. Gain 1 range. Melee an enemy in the Slayer zone. Chainsaw an enemy that is engaged with the Slayer. Strafe each enemy that is engaged with the Slayer. Move to a connecting zone, use equipment, pick up a supply or fuel of the Slayer zone, take a zone action, capture a rune in the Slayer zone. In addition to these actions, Slayers may perform any number of free actions like disengaging from enemies, activating a rune power, or executing enemies, or casting incantations. Taking free actions no count as taking an action. Booking the person with Arsenal 1 to a rocket jump, we must presume. Actions. Presumably these are zone actions. Actions. Attack. A Slayer may take an action to attack an enemy in the zone. Choose one of the Slayer's weapons to attack with and pay the ammo cost listed next to the weapon's name. Roll D66, modifying the roll against the enemy's mass. The Slayer's attack has disadvantage if that previous action round was an attack using the same weapon. So we're incentivizing here, changing up your weapons, moving through the different weapons and dealing different effects. Depending on the result of the roll, attacks have the potential to deal the weapon's fire and alt fire. Enemy damage and death stall. When an enemy takes damage, reduce the enemy's blood by the amount of doubt. When the enemy's blood is reduced to 0, the enemy becomes exhaustion on death's door. Okay, so you exhaust them, and then they're like, whoa. Enemies on death's door die. Take any amount of damage or at the end of the enemy phase. When an enemy dies, remove its miniature from play and erase its blood total. Okay, so you can knock them down to 0 HP, but they're still there unless you clear them. They'll go into the end of their phase, but they'll still get to attack because it's the end of the phase. Slayers may perform executions on enemies that are in death's door. Blow up explosive barrel. A player may take an action to blow up an explosive arrow at the zone. Remove a barrel from that zone. Then choose to deal 5 damage to each enemy that is engaged with the Slayer or to any one enemy in the Slayer's zone. But you don't hurt yourself from the barrel. Gain Rage. A Slayer may take an action to gain 1 Rage. Cast Incantation is a free action. You do your incantation thingy. And those normally cost Rage. So if you fail, you gain Rage, and you can spend that on a thing that can't fail. So you feel a little better about the fact that your dice aren't being very nice to you. Melee. A Slayer may take an action to engage and deal 1 damage to an enemy in their zone. Execute that enemy if it's on death's door. Ooh, engagement. We've got a long section here, indented even. When a Slayer becomes enraged with an enemy, place that enemy's miniature token in front of the player controlling that Slayer. Engaged enemies are in the same zone as the engaged Slayer, and they move with the Slayer whenever the Slayer moves to another zone. Come along, children. When a Slayer becomes disengaged from an enemy, place the enemy's miniature token at the Slayer's current zone. When a Slayer engages an enemy that is currently engaged with another Slayer, that enemy disengages from its previous Slayer and engages a new Slayer. Slayers can be engaged with multiple enemies at once. Slayers can perform execution, chainsaw, strafe, and disengage only on enemies that are engaged with. So if I melee and engage 3 people, I've now got 1 damage on all of them, and if they had 6 blood, I can be like, hey Parker, shoot a barrel in this zone. Wait, I think I have to shoot the barrel if they're engaged with me and I want to hurt them. So I could do it to 2 of them and then blow up the barrel. Or wait and get 5. And I assume they might close to engage on their own. Disengage only enemies that engage them. Execution. As a free action, a player may execute an enemy on death's door that is engaged with. This is literally from the like the new Doom games. When an enemy is weak and you get them with an execution, you get a whole bunch of resources, and that's how you get them rather than like pickups on the ground. And it was considered a pretty revolutionary mechanic at the time. The Slayer kills that enemy and gains 1 rage, then roll a number of 6-sided dice equal to the enemy's mass, minimum of 1, maximum of 4. And add up the results, the Slayer gains that amount of blood, not exceeding their max blood. Okay, so you can use this. This is how you heal. Next game, Chainsaw. A Slayer may take an action to chainsaw an enemy. In a sense, you don't want to kill too fast because you want to be sure that you and your buddy are able to execute all the enemies, because if they die in their turn, you don't get anything. Chainsaw. A Slayer may take an action to chainsaw an enemy they engage with. Pay an amount of fuel equal to the enemy's mass, minimum of 1. I don't remember a fuel max or anything listed on a character sheet. Then roll a number of 6-sided dice equal to the enemy's mass. Okay, so you just get to kill them, even if they're a lord. The lords presumably have higher mass. Then roll a number of 6-sided dice equal to the enemy's mass. Gains a combination of bullets and shells that sum up to that result, not exceeding. Okay, so you get heavy ammo, but you can get shell and bullets. Alright. If the enemy's mass is greater than the Slayer's, the Slayer gains any combination of bullets, shells, and heavy ammo instead. Oh, I see. You can add heavy ammo if you go after a larger foe. Strafe. Slayer may take an action to attempt to exhaust all enemies that Slayer is engaged with. Roll D666, modifying the roll against the zone's mass. Strafe. Roll results. trying to tire them all out. Exhaust all enemies engaged with Slayer, Slayer engages in action. So you just go straight to exhaustion, you have them on death's door. You don't even have to get through their health this way.
Wow.
Exhaust all enemies engaged with Slayer. Strafing is like just walking to the side and shooting, so I was kind of expecting it to involve the gun. Modifying the roll against the zone's mass. Okay. So in a sense, if it's a smaller area, it's easier to strafe them, I guess, to indicate. I'm not sure. We also have 0 viewers all of a sudden. Maybe they didn't like what I was saying so much. Just kidding. I think it's fucked. Critical hit. Exhaust all enemies engaged with Slayer. Extra action, which I think is always crit. Exhaust all enemies. Exhaust one enemy. So you can really tee people up to get fucked pretty easily here. Because in theory, you could just do one strafe roll, exhaust everyone engaged with you, and then shoot the barrel. Dealing any amount of damage to all everyone engaged, killing them all. You wouldn't get their little, like, Ghiblies, though, so you wouldn't be as happy. But ready and exhausted. Enemies and equipment can be in either ready or exhausted state. Ready means the enemy can act on its turn and equipment can be used. Exhaust an enemy. Am I mixing up my terms? I think Death's Door is different from Exhaust, actually. I think I'm being silly. Yeah, okay. Exhaust an enemy. So what it means is they wouldn't be able to take their turn because you're busying them up, chasing them around. Leading them on a merry chase is essentially what Strafe does here. Exhaust an enemy after it takes its actions during the enemy phase or successful strafe roll. Exhaust equipment when it is used. Exhausted enemies and equipment cannot exhaust again until they become ready. When an enemy is exhausted, mark it as exhausted on the enemy sheet. When equipment becomes exhausted, mark it as exhausted on the player sheet. Erase these marks when enemies will become ready. I don't know why I said it like that. Disengage is a free action. A Slayer may disengage from any exhausted enemies they're engaged with. Move. Slayers may take an action to move to a connecting zone. Move the Slayer's miniature token to a zone that connects with the Slayer's current zone. When the Slayer moves to a zone, all enemies engaged with the Slayer and remain engaged and move to the zone at the same time. Attacks of opportunity. A Slayer provokes an opportunity attack when they are engaged with one or more enemies and performed any of the actions below. Attack someone not engaged. Move. Use equipment, pick up supply, or fuel. Take a zone action attempt to capture. When a Slayer provokes an attack of opportunity, each ready enemies that is engaged. So you have a lot of ways to exhaust your enemies, right? Because I think this is a attacks opportunity performed resolving. Oh no, ops don't cause them to become exhausted. Huh. I see, but they are the readied, so you want to control their readied and unreadied status. Use equipment. We have a lot of ideas coming from board game design here that I think are really melding well with the tactical flow and are allowing dynamic states to think about and interact with outside of, you know, I'm on the far side of the dude, I get advantage. Which is a nice, you know, I'm horny for that sort of tactical play, but I can respect that we've taken a different approach here, and it is just frankly like easier to set up and run. The Slayer may take an action, for some people, an action to use the ability of one ready equipment. I've read that as to use the abilify. I'm like, yeah, he pop an abilify, exhaust that equipment when it was used, pick up supply. This is written very straightforwardly, very straightforward manual. Despite, like, you know, in a sense it drips with theme, right? Like the whole book, the whole aesthetic, all the art, it's very poignant. It's very of its theme. It's getting the job done. The rules all evoke it, right? But it's not dripping with flowery language related to that. It just says, you know, can't, you know, gain a combination of bullets and shells that die result, you know.
I feel like that has its place, though.
Yeah. A Slayer. Yeah, I mean, this reads more like a manual, you know what I mean? A Slayer may take an action, use a zone, set in zones, and, like, look at this motherfucker. Like, you know, like
That's amazing. That is...
We have the vibe coming through the art, and a lot of heavy lifting is the reference. If you do not know the game Doom Eternal at all, or like any of the Doom games, I've never played the new Doom games, or the old ones for that matter, but like, you know, you see a short YouTube video of them and you'll get the idea. So I don't think that it's like, it's not like this is a tabletop game that's only been made for players of the video game, but it's got the vibe. Capture a rune. Slayer takes an action to capture a rune. Yeah, extra action. You capture it, and you're cursed. No. Are you going to explain what a curse does? Capture a rune fails. Slayer gains one raise. Berserk runes are key to completing your mission objectives. Slayers may spend runes during a mission to gain powerful abilities. Unspent runes are worth 1 XP at each at the end of the mission. Activate a rune power. As a reaction, activate a rune power. Move a rune from your Slayer sheet. The enemy phase, the enemy block. Revenant, max 4, 15 blood, mass 1. Max 4, is it max 4 mass? Retaliate. Engage, attack with 4 damage. Unengage, attack 2 damage. Engage. Okay, so these guys are gonna like do a little and then run up to you and engage you. I see, I see. So they do different damage at engaged and unengaged ranges, making the decision more complicated. When an enemy attacks a Slayer, roll d66, modifying the deal double to damage, deal the damage, deal half. Attack misses. I'll bet the fact that it's half rounded up is part of why they're using even numbers for the damages, even though we saw more odd numbers sometimes in the players, like the 5 with shotgun. The attack misses, the target Slayer gains 1 rage. Okay, so they can also give you rage. The Slayer gains an extra action and an extra round. Holy shit, if a bunch of enemies critical miss you, you could wind up with a lot of actions. Because you get an action for them critically missing you. Engage. Your steps are complete. Proceed to hell. So basically, the enemies, hunter enemies move. Enemies with the hunter keyword pursue players from zone to zone. Yeah, it's gonna be a keyword game where you put little keywords on things for what it means. Like retaliate is definitely a keyword that we're gonna learn about later. Presumably, if they attack you back, if you attack them melee. If 2 players equal distance from the hunter enemy, the players decide which Slayer the hunter moves to. So hunters just go on the board, and because it's like a board game-ish scenario where there's no one running, it's solo play. The game has to somewhat run itself. And to keep people from being too static, you have hunter enemies. The first thing that happens in the enemy phase is they move. Equidistance, you literally decide between yourselves which the Slayer is going for. Basically, the hunters are just going to move for the closest enemy. Engaged enemies act. Unengaged enemies act. We just have to ignore enemies that are not in a Slayer zone. So yeah, we only care about the ones in the zone who aren't a hunter. Kill all enemies on death's door. So if they're like on death's door, because they didn't wind up getting fucked on. The hell phase. Doom escalates. Increase doom by 1. Remember, this is the clock that results in you losing if it gets too high. Then compare the amount of doom to the mission's doom threshold and max doom. If doom is greater than or equal to a doom threshold, resolve a torment that corresponds to the threshold's numbers to keep the missions dynamic, presumably as the doom goes up. And I think it can happen for certain failures and such as well. This is time. Shit will trigger. But then eventually your fox when it reaches the max. Once the torment is resolved, it may not resolve again. And on the nightmare mode, torment resolving time does not prevent enemies from spawning, but normally I think it does. Resurrect dead Slayers at the end of the go-around. Or will spawn enemies. Each player takes a turn rolling a 6-sided die on one of the mission's spawn table. So it's twice the spawn rate if you have 2 players, which is pretty easy inherent balance. If you roll a result that says blank +1 to spawn rolls, mark one of those modifiers if it is blank. On subsequent spawn rolls, apply +1 to the roll result for each marked +1 modifier. Erase these marks if you roll a result that says remove all +1 modifiers. Okay, so the spawn table is not necessarily going to spawn, but it could start putting modifiers on things. You may skip rolling during the step by paying 1 reprieve. You start out with 2 on the easiest mode, 1 on normal, and 0 otherwise.
Right.
So you can do that like once in the mission if you're on normal. Skip the step if a storm might resolve this round. Disregard if playing a nightmare. Raise hell. The players may agree to raise hell. If they do, each of the players gain 1 XP immediately and gain extra action next round. Then there's even more spawning, so do not skip the step if torment resolve this round. Players cannot raise hell more than once per round. Okay, so you can willingly take more foes for more XP. Fun.
Okay, that's cool. I like that.
Slayer damage and death. When a Slayer takes damage, first reduce their armor by that amount of damage until their armor is reduced to 0. Okay, so this is 2 uploads. Then reduce their blood by the main amount of damage. You drive their armor and blood totals in your player sheet. When a Slayer's blood is reduced to 0, that Slayer is killed. These are their main actions for that round. Remove the Slayer. The enemy that killed the Slayer gains the arch enemy status of fighting, gains the back attacks blood. Whoa! You gotta go back and kill the one who killed you. After the health phase ends, perform the following steps. Remove status effects on Slayers and enemies that last until the end of the round. All effects and abilities say this round end. Ready all exhausted enemies and equipment. Each Slayer gains 1 rage. When these steps are completed, the round ends. Proceed to the Slayer phase of a new round. The end of the mission. Aww.
said no. The Slayers complete all their... Okay, so victory. You did all your shit. You get XP. Congratulations. Defeat. Doom got too high. You get XP listed on the mission as a reward for defeat. So you still get something. Resign. The players agree to stop playing. The mission ends. Each player, each Slayer gets 1 XP for each unspent rune. So you have a bunch of runes and resign. You can, you know, still get something. Then erase the number of runes in your player sheet. After you finish your first mission, you choose to play any mission in any order. You can play a mission with a new set of enemies by using the right-hand page of any other mission. Into mutations, victory. Targeting zones. When the zone is revealed, spawn enemy. Elite enemy here. Mutations are enhanced with most during mission instead of choosing mutated by rolling once on the table. Outcome of your last mission. So if you won last time, they'll add more enemies, people will do more damage. If you got defeated, you'll get like a bonus that makes you hit harder. If you resigned, a bunch of XP modifiers for different conditions. So they're incentivizing you to play deeper into the mission if you resigned last time. Weirdly, you could like start a mission, agree that you immediately resign, and then like to farm these, but like, you know, below meta. Example of gameplay: Selena Wrath Prayer goes first in the Slayer phase. She has many options, but she may only take 3 actions. She decides to melee a revert her zone, dealing 1 damage and engaging it. Next, she attacks the reaver with her shotgun. She rolls a 3, 5, and 4. If her mass has been 1 greater than the reaver's mass, the 5 would have counted as a 6. Oh, last attack was only a weak hit, but still enough to kill the reaver with its fire. Thanks to the extra 2 damage from the shotgun, deals when the Slayers engage with their target. Selena Wrathprayer has 1 action left to take, but she saves it and passes the turn to the other Slayer. Impetuous Rob has a difficult choice to make. Selena was only able to kill 1 enemy, but there are 4 more enemies left in the zone. If the enemies left alive and ready, they will attack the Slayers that round. Rob could try thinning them out 1 by 1, but he decides to make a riskier play. First, as I was describing earlier, he attacks 2 enemies with his revolver, spraying out some damage to each enemy. Oh. Special ability negates the disadvantage he would have had for using the same weapon twice. I forgot that. Because I was about to say, if he uses the same action on the same weapon twice, it's a disadvantage, but apparently they're all going to go. Rob hits on each of his attacks. He then plans to attack with his lightning gun, hoping to land at least a weak hit to use its alt fire. Lightning gun's alt fire exhausts each enemy in the zone that took damage already this round. Oh my goodness. Selena wants to help him with this, so Rob passes the turn back to her before he attacks. Selena spends 1 rage to use anti-cosmic overload to give, which is the one everyone has. Give Rob advantage as attack roll. Cassie incantation does not cost 1 of her actions. She then uses her last action to melee another enemy in the zone, dealing it 1 damage so that Rob's lightning gun can exhaust it. Rob attacks the last undamaged enemy. He rolls 1, 2, 4, and 6, dropping the 1 because Rob has advantage. The attack is a strong hit, dealing both his fire and out fire. All enemies are exhausted and won't attack this round. Next round, both Slayers will need to plan around having less ammo, more enemies to kill, and runes left to capture. So, tight little example of gameplay where technically speaking a lot is happening, but it's still less than a game like 5e where you have every little person has a lot of fiddly little bits. Like we don't have, there's like a wisdom and a dex modifier and all these little fellows, and they don't have saves, don't have any reactive defenses. Slayer phase. Each Slayer takes turns performing the reactions. Enemy phase, enemy moves towards the nearest Slayer. Hell phase, increase doom by 1. End of the round. This is a rules reference. This shit can fit real dense, as you can see. All the actions, what you do in sequence, which is good to know when you have, again, like the sequence of 4 different rounds. I mean, 4 is end of round, but you know what I mean? Like these different phases, it's very, I say this complimentary, it's giving board game, but in a war game vibe, and I like that. I think it's unique. Unique New York. Upgrades. Between missions, players may spend their earned XP on the following upgrades. Extra melee damage, increased max blood, frag grenades, bigger mass. Oh, 13 XP, holy shit. Blind sight. This would be bad for a shotgun, technically. Good ways to lower your mass. Anyway. Gain arsenal ritual maul in the section of blank for this preview version. Necro Trezea in the section of blank in this preview version. Oh. What will Hexodius do? We don't know. We'll have to find out. Remember, the itch is pinned. Wait, it doesn't look pinned. Huh? I've repinned it. Check the pinned itch to check out Victor's creations like this and many more. Keywords: arch enemy. When a non-lord enemy kills a slayer, gains the. Am I tripping? Did we never find out what a lord enemy was?
I don't remember. No.
I just like. Lord, it's going to be in keywords, and I'm going to search for no reason. Yeah,
oh,
no,
there it
it's
is.
Literally in keywords. And
yeah.
I was searching for no reason. That enemy gains the arch enemy stat effect and immediately gains about to max blood. Arch enemy is +1 mass. When arch enemy dies, reduce doom by 1. Okay. So you can pull the doom that went up from dying down by killing it. Burn. If the ability affects burn enemy, apply the burning status to the enemy. When a slayer deals damage to a burn enemy, the slayer gains armor equal to the amount of damage they dealt with a burn enemy. Wow. So burn doesn't actually seem to hurt the enemy. It just gives you a reason to hurt them. Curse, and I didn't see other ways to get armor other than supply drops. So if an ability or effect would curse a slayer or enemy, apply the curse status effect to them. Cursed slayers and enemies have disadvantage on their attacks, and attacks against them have advantage. Ooh. Cast is removed when the cast slayer enemy rolls a missing critical. Are you colossal? I'm already colossal. Enemies engage all slayers in zone. Oh! Do not place the colossal enemy token in front of any player controlling a slayer. Engage the colossal enemy. When a colossal enemy becomes exhausted, it disengages from all slayers. A colossal enemy performs its engaged attack on each slayer. It is engaged with one slayer at a time in any order the slayers choose. After the colossal enemy finishes resolving his action against the engaged slayer exhausted. There's always a question of, in a game where you don't literally have a little, or even in a game where you do have a little board with like a larger token, how do you like just pick the super large enemy doing super large enemy things? This is an interesting way to do it. Colossal enemy only performs attacks of opportunity on the slayer that provokes the attack. Colossal enemies do not move with an engaged slayer if that enemy is moved to their zone. When engaged slayer moves to their zone, they become disengaged from the colossal enemy. Elite and elite enemies. Enemies leading the keyword cannot be the target of chainsaw attacks unless they are exhausted. Okay. So that's why the chainsaw kill, it seemed OP and didn't single out lords as actually so powerful. The player gains 1 XP when they execute an elite enemy. Ooh, nice. Hostile. Note only execute, not just kill. So you're still having to line up the pinata effect. Hostile. Anytime an unengaged and ready hostile enemy is at the slayer's zone, it automatically engages the slayer. If more than one slayer is a hostile enemy zone, the players may choose which slayer the enemy engages. An unengaged and ready hostile enemy will automatically engage if... I just find it funny that they like oh, hostile is like a special tag. I'm like, I think everyone here is pretty hostile. It's hell and they're trying to kill them. Okay, so it automatically moves to engage, which is distinct from, I guess, the Revenant who attack, deal damage, and they engage. I guess they don't have to hit with their attack to move in as part of it. If more than one slayer is at a hostile enemy's zone, the player chooses which slayer the enemy engages. An unengaged and already hostile enemy will automatically engage if it spawns in a zone with the player, it moves to a zone with the player moves to a hostile enemy zone, it exhausts an unengaged hostile enemy and becomes ready to slayer zone. Alright, so hostiles motherfuckers are all zooming in on you. Hunter. During the enemy phase, each ready and unengaged hunter enemy moves to a connecting zone along the shortest path towards the closest slayer. If more than one slayer is the same distance from the hunter enemy, choose which slayer the hunter enemy moves to. Hunter enemies in a zone with at least one slayer do not move. Lord. And with the Lord keyword cannot be the target of chainsaw actions and cannot be exhausted by slayer abilities other than strafe actions. Retaliate if a slayer rolls a miss or a critical miss on an attack against a ready enemy. With retaliate, the enemy performs either its engaged actions against the slayer if it is engaged with that slayer. Its engaged actions against the slayer if it is not engaged with that slayer. Neither occurs if the slayer is not in the enemy's zone. For example, if attacking with the railgun, the enemy is not exhausted to perform these actions. Shrouded. Critical. Oh no, retaliate is when you miss a critical miss is when they retaliate. I assumed it was going to be when you meleeed them. I see. Shrouded. Slayers cannot attack a shrouded enemy unless the enemy is engaged with the slayer. Ooh, alright. I guess you could build an enemy such that it just... you couldn't attack it because it never engaged you. I'm assuming that you never do that from a design perspective. I just find it interesting. Bach 1, the nightmare made flesh. Nothing hurts more than the pain of resurrection. You wake up into a nightmare, choking a sea of blood spewed from the mouth of a mountainous monstrosity. You are one of trillions of doomed being baptized, screaming tidal waves of blood vomit. You drag yourself onto the shore with degloved hands. Muscles go perversely over a restitched bone, like watching gore pull through a meat grinder in reverse. Wield the vile blood of the corpse god. When your eyeballs grow back into your sockets, you set them on the horrid icon of sin that vomited you into night existence. You ripped up its head, perhaps you could bring an end to this nightmare-made flesh. Rotting soldiers, cybernetic cores, and one fucked-up crusader riding a fell beast standing in your way. Get ready for bloodshed. Mission 1, reconsider the churning volume of the corpse deity. Mission 2, icosahedral keys to the fleshy gates. Mission 3, regorge in the morgue. And Mission 4, death womb cathecus. Lovely. This section left blank in this preview version, so again, like we weren't getting this hot and heavy steam in the rules. They were very cleaned up, I think, because this is where that flavor is supposed to pour out.
Right.
Mission 1, reconstituted in the churning vomits of the corpse. So this is a 4-zone map with a lot of connections, and everything else is locked. As a group, kill 3 enemies per slayer. Complete. Zones 2 and 3 are unlocked. As a group, capture 4 runes. When completed, Zone 4 is unlocked. Objective 3, kill a lord enemy resolutions. Gain victory, 4 XP, defeat, gain 2 XP. Rune powers, Cabal, gain 3 range. Onslaught your attacks. Deal double damage this round. Pig Cubus. Oh, the max number is the maximum number of them. 2 mass, 20 blood, 5 blood, 0 mass, 6 blood, 1 mass. Oh, here was 0 mass. Interesting. They're massless. Spawn, corpse soldier, X2 reaver. Oh, interesting tables. Torment each. How does this table work? If you roll a 1, 2, or 3, 2 corpse soldiers and a reaver come out. If you roll 5 or 4. Alright, piggy piss, remove all +1. Okay. The modifiers are growing. Okay, I see. Sorry.
You're good.
Bunch of saints their zone. Each engaged enemy engage the slayer of their zone. These are the torments, but what's the doom level? The threshold 3, 5, 8. Okay. Each slayer becomes cursed. I'm sure cursed is a keyword that I'm still overlooking. Arena. But what is it? Because we saw a curse earlier and I didn't figure it out.
Yeah, I remember that.
Use keyword. If an ability or effect would curse a slayer or enemy, apply the curse that's effective on cursed slayers and enemies have disadvantage on their attacks. Attacks against them have advantage. Curses removing the cursed slayer enemy rolls a miss, a critical rolls a miss or a critical miss. Okay, so when they fuck up, they get uncursed. That's interesting. So, they listed 4 missions, but this is a preview with some stuff up blank. Point is, this is what a mission looks like. It's pretty straightforward. It fits on 2 pages. And it's probably, like, if I had to guess, an hour, 40 minutes to an hour and a half entertainment, depending on how within engaged everyone is. Place a club at Zone A. Place facing around place the 2 zones. I'm not sure I remember what the point of the card suites was. I just remember you did them. So, that is WARRUNE. What's the WARRUNE preview? We go to page 40. The book lists 45 pages. I think Epoch 1 is presumably like the mission set 1. You can do them in any order after doing the tutorial, so I think it's more of like a daisy chain of missions, like a sort of mission era, and then you can move into different epochs about the story of capturing the runes and opening the gates of hell, I presume. But it sounds fun. It sounds neat. Mm-hmm. And shout out Victor A. Gonzalez. This is a wonderful game. And it looks fun. It's maybe... I think it is a co-op game. Is a co-op or solo game that definitely fills a niche that is not filled right now. It has some lovely presentation. It feels kind of like an old paper, like a papery, plasticky video game manual in a good way. It feels like it's explaining things to me, and it's got little fun bits around it. And overall, I'd say it is some solid, straightforward layout, and I haven't played the game, but it feels like it works in a pleasing fashion. And I enjoyed the ludology here of talking about what games take inspiration from. Also, look at Arkham Horror, the card game. But yeah, here at 1:40 p.m. Eastern, after an hour and 10 minutes of streaming, I do think that we have more or less tapped the back walls of this game. So, WARRUNE, how you feeling, Parker?
The theming is really intense.
Yeah.
But I like that about it. I think it's really neat. Like you said, it's really straightforward. I kind of like that they saved the really intensely flavored language for the missions. That kind of gave it room to breathe a little bit and didn't completely oversaturate the book.
Yeah,
with,
for sure.
Just that.
We could have put this across 4 or 5 times as many pages if we were just pumping blood and viscera into every page.
Right.
Not that there'd be anything wrong with that, but we got the job done a lot faster here.
Absolutely. And I think it's I'd definitely be able to just start playing this after reading. How long did it take us?
With commentary, an hour and 10 minutes,
an hour
except
10 minutes,
chop
yeah.
off 10 minutes because I was canoodling. So 10
Yeah.
minutes? No, sorry, no, long. An hour? This is perhaps an hour read if you are doing it at the speed of commentary.
Yeah, if you and your best friend read this across the span of an hour and then just got to playing, I think that would be totally feasible and you'd be able to play well and it would work well.
Yeah, you could probably have a weekend's entertainment out of 4 missions.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, I think that if you are into this niche, I see no reason not to put this in your backlog.
Absolutely.
Because you're getting everything you want. You probably already have all the shit you need to play, or if you don't, this would not be hard to scrap together pictures for on a Roll20 scenario.
Right.
The mission structure is very straightforward, and if you you and a pal are we have 2 people and we don't feel like that's enough to play a role-playing game, you can do it one-on-one, but if that's not the vibe with your group and you both want to be the player, so to speak,
right,
do this.
Yeah. And I always get excited when a game is for 1 to 2 people.
Oh,
I like that.
yeah. Are you a little co-op head?
Yeah. I think it's really cool to be able to either play a tabletop game on your own, because that's the position that I'm in most of the time.
Yeah.
Or to just play with one other person and have that work. Because again, that's a position I find myself in often, where I have one friend who's interested and not a whole group.
No, I was that way. I mean, my interest in the hobby was slowed for a long time because I had Cole, and that was pretty much it. So yeah, I mean, a game like this would have been perfect for us in college.
Absolutely.
I definitely think that, particularly when you're not in the hobby, you don't have a lot of friends who are. Maybe you have one friend who's interested, or maybe you don't.
Yeah.
I think 1 to 2, it's an underserved range. It's an underserved range. It's probably not talked about enough, and I think if there's anything I could say about WARRUNE, and maybe this is actually totally the page, case on the itch, and I'm just silly. Yeah, fully cooperative solo strategy game for 1 to 2 players. This is a good thing to emphasize. For those of you unaware, the default mode of WARRUNE is this. It's striking. I will say this. I get wanting to make it look like blood. If I were to give one piece of constructive criticism for you can do black and red. I would like to do black and red myself. You probably need to go with a fainter red.
I would agree.
And you probably need to a fainter red and a thicker black all around, I would say. Larger black font.
Yeah, if you're going to be putting straight black text on another color, I feel like maybe
you thicken it up.
Or heretically you make it like a black outline fill.
Maybe that might be for like bodies of text though.
For a header,
Okay,
probably not for just a. You probably want to break it up a little bit more. Although I mean, I'm no color theory man. I'm just game design boy, and I can say this is some tasty game, a nice thing to play with your friends. Here's WARRUNE 2020. It doesn't look. It looks like the remaster is in the pipe, and I think that you should
strongly consider enjoying it because hell is total fucking war. It's metal. Ooh, I like it.
I like it too.
I think that's all I really have left to say is Victor. Good job, gamer. And I look forward to see what what comes next. And right now, you know what? We'll raid the Cytherian, even though
they're playing Anno.
Yeah, as an Anno head myself, I would love to join them. So we're gonna pump a raid over to the Cytherian. He's a cool fellow. He plays some tabletop role-playing games on stream sometimes, and we'll enter right now. So we'll see you on the flip. Oh,
Lee, thanks for having me.
Of course, it was a pleasure to have you, and a pleasure to not be able to push the raid button because I have something. we love the, oh my god, the same for all. Alright, we're gonna have to unpin it right now to be able to oh fuck, we'll pretend that didn't happen.
Invalid username.
Fuck, I put a space. We'll see you on the flip, and we'll see you in some drip. Hey.